What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. So you're living in a financial prison and you want to know how to escape. I'm glad you're thinking along those lines. I was talking with some friends and family over the past week, and despite the challenges that the economy is going through, the Biden era inflation, the cost of everything is higher than anybody this new couple of generations are experiencing. The cost of housing is soaring. The incomes aren't commensurate with the inflation of housing costs and things of that nature. $100 worth of groceries, 5 years ago, could potentially feed, two people, and now you barely can get enough to eat off one. And I'm hearing stories about, two-parent households with two incomes, still, having been together for 10, 15, 20 years, struggling to put together a few extra $100 for unplanned expenses that pop up. There's still adults in their 30s and 40s who still dropping $20 in the gas tank. And, $20 in the gas tank is not what it used to be. And it dawned on me, what have I been able to do in conjunction with the challenges that everyone's facing, economically that has afforded me a peace of mind and allowed me to escape the financial prison of paycheck to paycheck. And it puts me in mind of the Pareto rule. The Pareto principle is simply a principle called the 80-20 principle, which means 20% of your actions produce 80% of your results. And if you can find a way to identify what that 20%, and it applies across the board, 20% in your fitness, 20% in your spiritual growth, 20% in your personal growth, 20% in your economic growth, financial growth, will produce 80% of the results in your life. Now that's powerful, because if you can identify what that 20% is, now you can lock in and focus on what gives the greatest impact of your time, energy, and efforts to garner the greatest results. And so many times when I think about the challenges that I've overcome and have dealt with, they center around perfection. We want to get it all right. We want to get, how many times you hear folks talking about, man, I'm giving 100%. Well, if you're giving 100% in any endeavor, and the 100% is the wrong 100%, you're not going to garner the results that you're after. And so, for example, I've been married 24 plus years. And I believe it was year 1 or 2 that I happened upon a book called The Two Income Trap. Now, don't hold the author against me. She went all the way left, maniacal, liberal. I believe politics and politicians get poisoned by the system that is what it is today. But Elizabeth Warren, former Harvard professor, had a daughter who was attending Harvard as well at the time, because Harvard faculty and staff, their families can attend Harvard for free, in case y'all didn't know that. Well, back in the early 2000s, she wrote a book called The Two Income Trap. And I'll give you the essence of the book is the economy was going in a direction where once upon a time, two people living independent of each other could come together and live as cheaply as one. Now think about how powerful that is. You're paying rent, your lady's paying rent, you paying a car note, she's paying a car note, you're paying utilities, she's paying utilities, you're buying food, she's buying food, insurance, you get it. But then y'all come together and combine your incomes and you should technically cut your expenses in half. And that would position you to have economic and financial success going forward if you're intentional and you're aware that two can live as cheaply as one. But the premise of her book was the American economy was going in such a direction that it was going to compel couples to need both incomes just to have a decent middle class living. Well, if you paid attention to any of the videos I've put out over the past couple months, we don't care about the economy. We care about your economy, because your economy is within your control. You can make decisions and choices that have direct, immediate impacts on your reality. And so when I read that book, the greatest thing I took from it was, if I can design a life with a wife and a child where my income covered all of our expenses, then at some point, any additional income I made or any additional income my wife made would be surplus that we could then start to get separation between survival, or that the prison of paycheck to paycheck, that would eventually set us free, or at least establish a financial peace of mind that we can move through and navigate the vicissitudes of life that will afford us a greater opportunity to thrive opposed to survive. And so it was tough. It took about 5 or 6 years to get our arms around a lifestyle that wasn't restrictive, or so restrictive that we felt like we were living a life of deprivation, and afforded me an opportunity to earn enough income to cover 100% of our cost of living as a family. And ultimately, as a family of four, I'll tell you, once upon a time, as a family of four, we were only generating $34,000. $34,000 on a family with a family of four is crazy. You might as well say, we was in poverty, but we weren't, because I was very intentional with the moves we made. Now that's a story for another video. And I promise you, it's not deprivation. And some folks would say it was a sacrifice. And I would lean towards sacrifice in the sense that there's a tendency to think that there's a negative connotation affiliated with sacrifice. Like you're giving something up. You're depriving yourself of now. I work hard. I should be able to indulge on some of the fruits of my labor. But let me explain something to you. One of my favorite definitions of sacrifice is to simply make something sacred. Now, when you make something sacred, that means it's precious to you. That means it has an innate, personal sense of pride, sense of no matter what it takes, this cannot be violated because it's greater. The vision I have for the sacrifice that I've made in making this sacred is far greater than any discomfort I may be feeling now. And I'm here to tell you, some of the things we decided to make sacred is that we would never design a life or live a life that will compel us to need all the income we got coming in. And so we were able to go through, now this is over the course of 20 years. Make no mistake about it. This isn't overnight. But over the course of 20 years, we were able to go from one W-2 income of $34,000 to a real estate portfolio in excess of $2 million in value. I say that to you not to impress you, but impress upon you that there's things you can do a certain way that guarantees a certain result. To a 6-figure stock portfolio that ultimately we treat as sacred investments, because we've taken a great deal of our discretionary income and pushed it into investments that will afford us a greater lifestyle as we get older, rather than a deprived, hand-to-hand, paycheck to paycheck, depending on, God forbid, God bless anyone depending on Social Security to sustain their current, future, or any lifestyle. And so how do you do that? Okay. How do you go get gas in your car and you know you're going to fill up every time? Okay. That's not even a thought. It's subconscious. You go into the gas station means you're going to fill up. Not, I'm going to drop this few dollars to get me these few days. How do you cover your son calls you, he's away in school and he needs, a flight from Pennsylvania to Atlanta and it costs $700 and you're not freak out, or you got to put 4 new tires on one of the cars because the alignment messed up the tires and now you got to spend $900, but you do that. How you do that is you do things a certain way. Back to that 80-20. You identify the things that work, you identify the things that don't work, and sometimes that takes looking in the mirror. And what is the mirror? The mirror of how you spend money, how your spouse spends money, what's your relationship as an individual, what's your relationship as a couple, and how y'all go about managing your day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year income you got coming in. Because the truth of the matter is every family is an enterprise. You got revenues, you got expenses, hopefully you got investments, you got reserves. There's a CEO, a COO, and you have to come together and decide on what's the business plan for this revenue we got coming into this enterprise and how can we best grow it. And you have that. I challenge anyone to look in this video. If outside investors were to look at your family business enterprise, would they consider your family a liability or an asset? Would it garner future investment, or would they want to cash out and get their money back? Only you can answer that. And so what I want to leave with you guys tonight, and ladies, is you cannot underestimate the power of writing down. If you want to put it in a spreadsheet and all of that, but again, I'm telling you, there's something powerful about using extra senses, seeing the paper, smelling the paper, touching the pen, writing it out. This is where I'm at. These are our fixed expenses. It costs us this for rent, this for transportation, this for food, this is for utilities, and knowing what that number is. Now it's going to ebb and flow plus or minus a few dollars. But once you know that, now your team knows that, hey, this lifestyle we've established for ourselves costs X. We're generating Y, which is hopefully greater than. And we're going to create as much separation between the two as possible. And we're going to take the difference between the revenue we have coming in and the expenses that we're holding firm. We're going to take that difference and we're going to make it sacred. You're going to start saving it. I'm not even going to tell you to start investing it. You're just going to start pooling that money, pooling that money, pooling that money, and pooling that money. I don't care if it's $20, $200, $1,000, whatever it is. You have to cultivate the discipline to get money, set a portion of it aside, and don't touch it for an extended period of time. I would challenge you not to touch that for at least a year so you can understand what it takes, what it's like to take money, put it aside, and no matter what happens, you're not touching that. That money's sacred because you got a greater vision for you, your family, and what you hope for your future. And once you've done that, during that year, I challenge you, invest in yourself, invest in your family, invest in your education of self, okay? Buy a book on fitness. Buy a book on personal finance. Buy a book on personal development. And start educating yourself and feeding your mind. You can do podcasts and watch YouTube videos. If you want to watch TikTok and all that, do that too. But take time to get some physical books and Set some time aside to actually invest in educating yourself and become a better version of who you are. I promise you it'll be the greatest investment you'll make, greater than any 4-year degree. Do that over the course of the next 6 to 12 months as you're learning to discipline of taking a portion of your money, setting it aside, making it sacred. And then after that year, you will have become a different person. So I challenge you, drop a comment. What is one thing you wouldn't mind doing to enhance not only your today, but your tomorrow, and better yet, your future financially? And I'll leave you with this. My guy, Jim Rohn, one of my favorite quotes. You work hard on your job, you'll earn a living. But if you learn to work harder on yourself, I promise you, you'll make a fortune. YouTube, I appreciate y'all rocking with me this week. One love, peace, appreciate y'all.